Hello everybody, welcome to this week's live webinar, market catch-up thing. If you haven't attended one of these before, I do these every week, normally on a Friday, and we take a look at what to watch out for in the week ahead, the major announcements, and then have a look at markets in a bit more detail. So have a look at a mix of markets, stock market indices, currencies, commodities, Bitcoin, gold, oil, all the usual. It's been quite the week. Look at this, even the FTSE 100, quite often one of the most boring stock markets out there, is at fresh all-time highs again today. So big old move there. The DAX, with the break in the DAX yesterday, out through its previous all-time high from earlier in April. US stocks not quite back to all-time highs just yet. Those highs come in beginning of April around, 52.80, something like that on the S&P. The Nasdaq, there we go, we can see that that's still a bit 300, 400, 500 points below the all-time highs, but some real strong moves in stock markets this week. So it's been an interesting week, and it's going to be an interesting one next week because there's a big announcement next week. But before we get into that, let's just go through a risk warning for the sake of good order. This presentation is only for educational purposes. This presentation does not contain and should not be construed as containing investment advice or an investment recommendation or a solicitation for or transaction in any financial instrument. David Jones accepts no responsibility for any use that may be made of these comments and for any consequences that result. You should consider whether you understand how spread bets, CFDs, futures, foreign exchange work, and whether you can afford to take the high risk of losing your money. Trading is risky. Okay, I did a webinar a couple of weeks ago on day trading, my day trading approach for short-term trading US indices, Dow, S&P, Nasdaq, covering planning the trade, what's important and what's not, why people lose and taking profits. It was for people in the WhatsApp group that I run. If you'd like access to the recording of that, if you subscribe to the WhatsApp group, I'll send you the link to that. So the WhatsApp group is £50 a month, but if you subscribe with the code YouTube, you get 20% off. So you get access to this hour-long webinar for 40 quid, and you have access to the WhatsApp group for a whole month. So details as usual in the description down below. So let's take a look at next week. Inflation, I think, is the big theme for next week. But on Tuesday, we've got US Producer Price Index. Wednesday, we've got European GDP. How well or not is the European economy doing? We had those positive numbers, didn't we, for the UK this morning. UK exits recession with fastest growth in 2 years. So the economy in the UK grew by 0.6%. between January and March. So let's see what the EU numbers look like next week. But the big one is US inflation. So the consumer inflation, what's it look like? Still a lot of focus by markets on interest rates. When are they going to go down? Are they going to stay higher for longer? Is inflation going to upset the apple cart? So that is the big one, I think, for next week. US inflation, an hour ahead of the market on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, we've got Japanese GDP. So how well or not is the Japanese economy doing? But I think Wednesday is the big one for next week. So we'll see what that looks like. So the WhatsApp group I run, I do a daily update in the morning. I do 2 updates, actually. Do an update in the morning, markets I'm watching, what looks interesting from a whole mix of markets, trades I'm running, any Q&A throughout the day. And then I do an update in the afternoon for US markets. So levels to watch from a day trading point of view, and also from a stocks point of view. I've mentioned a bit in the past, the big thing for me this year has been trading US stocks, more medium-term positions on US stocks. There's a snapshot, normalised back to a couple of £100. So it's made, I think I did the numbers, about 14%, 15% return on margin so far this year. Very relaxed approach. I think I've got about 40 positions still open, but I try and do at least 3 US stock trades per week, and I talk about those in the afternoon when the US market is open, what I'm looking to do. So it's a much more medium-term approach. Some of the US stock trades I've got running at the moment. What's been the longest? I think I'm still in Amazon, so I did that towards the end of last year, end of December. So down here somewhere, and in the Amazon trade, I think Google. I've been in that for a while as well. That's done okay. And I'm just trying to pick up on stocks that have got good trends. This has been a great one, Eaton Corporation. So it's a much more relaxed approach to trading. I think there's, plenty of people think you need to sit in front of a screen and jump in and out 50 times a day. But for me, this trading of US stocks is definitely trying to identify the big trends and then ride those trends for as long as possible. And it's worked all right. It's been really low maintenance this year. So I talk about those trades in the afternoon on the WhatsApp group as well. Okay, so blah, blah, blah. There we go. That's all that. And if you sign up and use the code YouTube, the link is in the description. You get access. You get discount for the first month, and you can access that webinar I was talking about. There's a snapshot of what a typical morning update looks like from me, and the little chart of the day thing. What was today's chart of the day? Dollar index. I thought that was an interesting market, dollar index today, because it had been recovering since last Friday's payroll low. That was a week ago. Bang, 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 bang. Got clobbered yesterday. I wondered if we see a bit of a rally. Let's see. But we'll come back to that. So that's what it looks like. Okay. I also run a trading course. You can find details on the website. I've got a newsletter I send out every weekend, normally on a Sunday. That's free. So if you go to the website, davidjonestrading.co.uk, on the home page, if you haven't signed up, there's a little box to sign up for that newsletter in there. Okay, that's it. Let's take a look at the markets and see what's going on. So, like I say, it's been quite the week. Stock markets. If you start off with the S&P, let's just start with a blank page. We had this great run from October into the beginning of April, where we had, only ever really had the slightest of sell-offs on the way up. It was a really strong trend. It's a really easy market to trade, or easier than it can be sometimes. And bang, 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 market pushed higher, all good. And then the market started breaking down in April. April, I gave back profit on my open US stocks in April because the market was fairly relentless. We just sold off in a straight line for a bit. Then it stabilised and it's bounced back. So where does this market go next? Well, for me, I think the obvious target and the test is going to be, can it break the old all-time high? So I think that's really interesting. Perhaps inflation is the thing that upsets the apple cart next week. I think we could well see cautious markets on Monday and Tuesday ahead of that inflation data. Let's see, but that would be my target. And I think if we break out to all-time highs again, off we go again. If we look at, when did the market last break its all-time high? Was here, Jan of this year, in at 4,800 or thereabouts, and rallied 400 points, 10%, not quite 10%. So it'll be interesting to see what happens if this level, these old all-time highs on the S&P break. Of course, if you're bearish, if you think that this is just a bounce before the market turns lower, then it's getting near the perfect area to go short. If you don't think we're going to see all-time highs, the logical trade is to go short and have a stop above 5,300, let's say. So for me, I've got a lot of long US stock market exposure at the moment. I'm quite happy to sit with it and watch it day by day and see what happens. Let's see what happens next week. Same for the old NASDAQ. So same thing here. My target what I want to see is what happens up here. These all-time highs on the NASDAQ from the third week of March, around about just below 18,500. So about 300 points above where we're trading now. So I think it'd be interesting. But if it fails, that's interesting as well. Because if it fails, are we going to get... there we go, my very scientific analysis here. We're going to get that sort of move. Boom. To fresh lows. I don't know. But as of now, as of today, these markets are still strong. So yeah, I think they're a very interesting week next week for stock markets. So for now, I'd still be a buyer of the dips. If you looked at the S&P, I mean, it's ran away. That was yesterday's trade. It's ran away overnight again. So we've seen a strong move in the overnight market. Had a couple of quiet days, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then yesterday it got a move on again. That was the interest rate decision a week last Wednesday. Some crazy moves there. But you can see the recovery we've been in since about the third week of April, and it's still going. So yeah, for me next week, all eyes on whether all-time highs are made in the S&P and the Nasdaq. So that's that. Other markets, the Nikkei has been a little bit laggy. The Nikkei, not quite the same level of excitement in the Nikkei that we've seen in other markets. So this is the the Nikkei going back to October last year. We're still in this trend. We've still got higher major lows, higher major highs. So I'd still be a buyer of the dip. We just haven't had that much in the way of excitement for the Nikkei. But if I was a buyer now, I'd probably have a stop below 35.6 if I was trying to follow this trend. So let's see what happens. The DAX though, again, let's just tidy things up a bit here. So the DAX, we have had a breakout this week in the DAX. Last couple of days, all-time highs have been broken. And again, the last time this market broke all-time highs we had a bit of a false break actually going on there. But then we had the old highs there, broke those in December last year, and the market moved a couple of thousand points higher. We don't know if that's going to be the case this time round, but again, a breakout to fresh all-time highs is normally considered quite bullish. And even the FTSE, the FTSE, which can often be a pretty dull market because of the way it's made up, the UK FTSE 100, we're seeing breaks here. The old all-time high was from Feb 23, I think it was. Yeah, broke that the other week and has moved about 5% higher since then. So these markets, the DAX and the FTSE, do look bullish. So I would be a buyer of the dip in those markets. The only fly in the ointment, and it's a big one, is what happens with US markets. If we saw US markets perhaps turn down next week ahead of or after the inflation data, I can't see other world markets just carrying on higher. But let's see. Like I say, take it day by day, see how it all works out, and see what happens on Wednesday with the inflation. I think the Hong Kong index was interesting. So lots of stocks looking strong. So in the Hong Kong Hang Seng, this market had been in a downtrend from Jan 23. Jan this year traded near the old lows from November 22. Turned round, I would have be thinking short there. There we go, we're back to the downtrend, but it's broken out. So there we go. So the Hong Kong index looks like it's turning around a major trend there. I think that's an interesting market. I might have a look at an ETF for those to chuck in my pension, see what happens with those. But yeah, it's an interesting move there, I think, in the Hong Kong. So loads going on with stock markets at the moment. Let's see what happens next week and whether these US markets are going to break out and continue to power the rest of the world higher. Okay, let's take a look at some currency. So the dollar index, I was wondering if there was going to be a bounce in the dollar index today. But the dollar index, the trend for the year so far, the trend is up. Yeah, if we go back to the lows, the late December lows in the dollar index, the trend is up for the year. We had fresh highs for this recovery during April. It's a bit choppy since then, but I'd be a buyer of the dip of the dollar index at the moment. It's just how far does that dip go? I was wondering today, we have had the recovery since the payroll lows. Do we see a bit of stability here? Not so far, but let's see what happens. I've got a trade on. I've got my stop below the low of Monday, so below the lows of the week, and just looking to see and run that trade into next week, assuming I'm still in the trade. Let's see what happens with that. But of course, with the dollar being a bit volatile, we're seeing it in other markets as well. Pound against the dollar. So the pound, we had the interest rate decision this week from the UK. No changes to interest rates. I would say the trend is still just about down, I would say. So I'd still probably favour being short the pounds. But again, it's all a little bit scrappy, isn't it? A little bit scrappy. It did break to new lows for the year in the third week of April, which I would say is bearish. But and this sort of 126 area continues to be a problem for the pound. So I'm not much interest for me in trading that. But interesting to see what happens if this dollar resolves itself. Same for the euro, really. I mean, there's a downtrend in the euro going back to March of this year. If we flick it over to the hourlies, there we go. Look at that. It's almost textbook downtrend. So again, if I was going to do a trade here, the trade I would do would be to be a seller, and the closest I would have my stop would be above these highs from a week ago, but probably even further. If I was looking for a half decent move, I'd probably go above 108, let's say 109, above there to give it a bit of wiggle room. But that's quite an interesting market to watch. The rest of today, see how this performs near the old trend. We do have the trend going up over the last couple of weeks. Let's see how it all resolves itself. We'll see what happens there. Dollar yen, I mean, we did have that move out to fresh all-time highs in dollar yen. There we go. Then a bit of intervention or concerns about intervention. Can't remember what it was. And almost textbook move this was. I mentioned it in the WhatsApp group. It came back, tested the breakout level, and bang, it's bounced off again. So again, dollar yen, very clear trend, all-time highs in the last couple of weeks or so. I'd be a buyer. The closest I'd have my stop based off the daily chart is the other side of this 152 low. But I thought that was quite interesting. Let's take a look at gold and silver. It's a big move in gold overnight. It had been, here we go, it had been a little bit quiet. This was yesterday in gold. This is an hourly chart. So you can see a little bit quiet overall, gold. And then we had this move. Perhaps the dollar weakness spotted it, I don't know. But I think it was more than that because it's moved more than the dollar has weakened. The trend for gold is up. We had all-time highs in gold during April. So again, I'd be a buyer of the dip on gold. Based off the daily chart, the first place I want to have my support is 22, the other side of 22.65. These lows from early April. But that all still seems positive to me, the price of gold. Take a look at the price of silver. Again, that's had a move. This old support around 26 held the market up. I think it's interesting what happens if we see it strengthen a bit more, because $30 has been a problem for silver. We've not seen silver above 30 in more than 10 years. Let's see. Let's see what happens if silver manages to break 30. So at the moment, yes, it's bullish, but you can just see how much of a problem the $30 mark has been for silver. Is this time going to be any different? Copper was interesting. I traded copper a bit during April, and it broke out again today. It's come off a lot, but I mean, I'd be a buyer of the dip in copper. That's going back to mid-Feb, so that's a couple of months nearly now. That trend's been going in copper. I think that's an interesting market for next week. If I was looking to trade it now, I'd put my stop at least the other side of 435 on copper. But we've seen some real strength in this market. Again, after a fair bit of sideways nothingness, it's really got to move on over the last 3 months or so. So I think that's an interesting market, copper. Price of oil has come back to that trend. So this is the trend for oil going back to December. So the price of oil in April was about $88 a barrel. It's traded back near 77, and it has turned around. So for me, if I was a buyer of oil at the moment, based off the daily chart, I'd have my stop below these lows, 75.50, whatever it is, something like that. On the hourly chart, perhaps a bit more aggressive. The other side of 77, maybe. But that's quite interesting, because is it a market that's had this correction and is turning around, and away we go back up to 88. Interesting market, I think, to watch the price of oil. Natural gas, the old bogey market. And natural gas has broken out. It had been in a sideways trend since Feb. We have had the breakout this week. 2 had been a problem for natural gas. And here we are. Natural gas at its highest levels since early February this year. I mean, it can be a bit of a crazy old market, natural gas, can't it? But looking at it now, I'd be a buyer of the dip in natural gas. I'd want to stop the other side of 2, other side of 190, something like that. Interesting to see how far this dip goes. Let's see what happens there. What else is interesting? Oh, Bitcoin. We haven't looked at Bitcoin, have we? Let's have a quick look at Bitcoin. Pretty boring, Bitcoin. It's not doing a lot, is it? It's the big trend is still up. Absolutely. From early last year or the end of 2022, the big trend is still up. We're a long way away from that trend line, but the big trend is still up. If I was a buyer now, I'd probably want to stop inside of 50,000 down here somewhere. Look, if I was looking for a bigger move in Bitcoin, let's see what happens. But nothing too exciting for that one. So really, for next week, lots to watch. But because it's US inflation data, for me, the market to watch will be US stocks. And here we go, pushing higher again now into the recovery. So I think that's really an interesting one to watch because we have these all-time highs for US stock markets, less than 1% away from where it is now. So that's going to be a lot of my focus. The FTSE is still strong. The DAX has broken out to all-time highs. I think that's interesting. The dollar has taken a bit of a pounding, and it's still taking a bit of a pounding. Let's see if that turns around. And this oil price, because the trend for oil is up, and is it turning around based on where we are now? I don't know. Let's see. But, it's doing what you'd expect it to do in a market that's trending like that. And that's it, I think. So if there's any stuff you want looking at, if you put it in the chat, we'll take a look at it now. I'll just say, if you want to try out the WhatsApp group, use the code YouTube. Go to the website, use the code YouTube, and you get 20% off the first month. And we can take a look at that. And you can join the WhatsApp group. You get access to that day trading webinar and all of that stuff. Right, but there's some questions coming in, so let's have a look. Can we have a look on Sony? Let's have a look at Sony. Sony Group. Okay. Oh, dear me. What's going on there? It's doing really badly, isn't it? Is there another listing? That's the New York listing. It looks a little bit thin, doesn't it? There's a German listing. It's probably not right either, is it? No. Let's stick with the New York listing. So it's a bit patchy trading. I'm guessing it trades in Japan or somewhere, doesn't it? Normally. Hang on, let's see. Is there a Japanese market listing on here? No, I can't find it. Let's stick with it. What do you think? I mean, it's pretty weak, isn't it? If you think about what stock markets are doing, all racing away, and Sony is racing in the other direction. I mean, I think it's interesting. It wouldn't be one for me for today because it's still weak. But you could take the view, couldn't you? Or I would take the view. We were in a downtrend on Sony till the end of 2022. It has recovered, and the recovery stalled. So for me, if I was thinking about being a buyer, I'd want to wait a little bit for it to stop selling off. And I'd want to stop the other side of those lows from 2022. So yeah, it's a bit of a wait and see one for me at the moment, but it's pretty weak, isn't it? It's been pretty weak. It's lost 25% since the January highs. So for me, it's a wait and see one. Interesting to see what happens if it does trade down near these old 2022 lows. Do we get a bounce back? But let's see. Can have a look at Caterpillar. Yeah, Caterpillar is on my list to buy. I think I might have missed it. Hang on a second. Let's have a look at those. Caterpillar. So I would be a buyer. Oh yeah, I should have bought it. There was a great opportunity to buy in here. I think that's what I was thinking about buying it. But anyway, I'd be a buyer. The trend is up. For me, based off the dailies, an aggressive stop is the other side of 330. A more relaxed stop is the other side of 310. So I would absolutely be a buyer of Caterpillar. Another one that broke out to all-time highs in January of this year. It moved a lot higher. It had an $80 move from there, which was 25%, 22%, whatever. Big move though for Caterpillar. The pullback was the opportunity. So yes, I would be a buyer. Eaton. I'm in Eaton. It's one of my best performers, Eaton. So I'm in that one at the moment. Breaking out today. So a great trend since October 23. Breaks out here, bang, in Jan. I think that's where I bought them, on the breakout, and then has gone ballistic. And here we are, the breakout again today. So yeah, so if I was a buyer, the absolute closest I'd have my stop would be the other side of 300, maybe down below 290. But you know, for me, that's the sort of trend that I love. Eaton. So what are they doing? Let's have a look at my little list of what's going on. So they're up 1.2% today. Okay. So that's my third best performer today. Let's see how that works out. But yeah, that looks good. STLA, Stellantis. Stellantis, is that the car company that owns Fiat and everybody else? It's interesting, isn't it? It's had a real fall from grace there, hasn't it? I mean, I would be tempted to be a buyer. Different reasons for buying Eaton. You know, in Eaton, we're buying the strength, going with the momentum. But Stellantis has had a great trend in Stellantis. If they're going to bounce anywhere, here we are. You know, so yeah, that's an interesting one. That I'd probably wait till next week, give it a bit of time. But if I was a buyer, I would be tempted to have a stop the other side of $20 at least and see what happens. See if you can build a base down here. But that's a really interesting one. That old Stellantis. Nat Gas, do you think it's a good sell at this level? I don't know. I think Nat Gas is a crazy market, isn't it? I mean, it has broken out on the dailies, hasn't it? It's broken out on the dailies, yeah. And you're saying the weekly trend is still down. So are you picking up from those highs up there? Let's have a look. Are you saying from here that trend is still down? I mean, yeah. I mean, if I was going to go short, I think there's a couple of ways of doing this. Really aggressive with a tight stop, or if you really thought, well, look, this is a false breakout in natural gas, put the stop a bit further away, up there above 260. It's a tricky one, you know, because it has been strong. That trend, you know, it has been up since April, so we're about a month into that. So yeah, I mean, I've not been particularly accurate with my own natural gas trading this year, so yeah, I don't know, but I'd be inclined more to buy the dips at the moment in natural gas rather than doodah selling it. But can we check the RSI on the Nasdaq weekly? Yes, there we go. I mean, that doesn't. Oh, that is the Nasdaq. That just looks. I suppose we've got a bit of bearish divergence, haven't we? Where the market's hit a high here, trades higher, but the RSI's made lower highs. We did have a similar setup here, maybe a better textbook example there. Yeah, but I don't worry. I must admit, I don't worry too much about that. I'm more about the momentum. But yeah, maybe a bit of bearish divergence there, but an undeniable strong trend for now, at least. Anyway, can orange juice squeeze any higher? OJ, it's been a bit boring, isn't it? Oh, it's had a little bit of a buff, bit of a pop. What do you reckon? I don't know. I mean, the trend. I mean, it's a fantastic trend, orange juice, wasn't it? Was it last year? And then it went ballistic from July, and then came crashing back down again. It's all a bit sideways for me, orange juice. So I don't know. If I had to do anything, I'd be a seller. I'd take the view the OJ market has overreacted, and we're going to pull back into the range. But it's a tricky one for me, that. I mean, I'd buy a dip. We've had a dip down towards 300 again. I'd buy that. But it's not been the most exciting market this year, has it? For the last few months. What's cocoa doing as we're on the drinks thing? Okay, they're not doing much. Yeah, so orange juice, not sure. I'd be tempted to go short and chuck a stop. I don't know. At 420 or something. I don't know. Coffee US, yeah, coffee. That's been a really volatile market, hasn't it? I buy it. Would you buy it? I'd buy it. I mean, that's been nuts. Coffee, you know, it went from beginning of April 192 to 248. So what's that? 25% move, and then nearly all the way back again. So I suppose for me, the trade I would do, I'd be a buyer, but I'd want a wide stop. You know, an aggressive stop for me would be down at 192, below the most recent low. But I'd probably plonk a trend. Oh, textbook trend. Look at that. I'd probably plonk the trend on like that, and I would probably go at least the other side of 180 for a stop on that one. Interesting though, isn't it? I mean, Coffee Robusta, I think, has been a bit more crazy. There we go. Yeah, that's Coffee Robusta. But similar sort of thing, isn't it? Got a bit ahead of itself in April, come back down and sort of holding above the old range. So interesting markets those. What about Bosch? B-O-S-H. Bosch Limited. What is it? Bosch the company? I don't think it is it? I don't even know what that is. Why is that not coming up properly? B-O-S-H. Can you give me a bit more information on that? Because I'm not really getting anything. I don't know. Is it one of these Japanese stocks? Don't know. Tesla, orange juice, S&P now less than 2% away from all-time highs. It's not even that, is it? Because what's the all-time high? If we take it as 82, it's 50 points away, isn't it? So it's even less than 1%, isn't it? I think, yeah. So it's really close. Let's see what happens. Bosch, yeah, Bosch isn't coming up for me. EPI. EPI, Wisdom Tree India Earnings Fund. All right, what's that then? Investment. That looks good, doesn't it? Is it something that follows the Nifty 50 or the Indian stock market? Hang on a second. Let's flip over to the Nifty. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It looks a bit similar. Anyway, EPI. You know, for me, the trend is definitely up, so I'll be a buyer. The only question is, as usual, where does your stop go? I put a stop below 42. If I was a buyer, I put a stop the other side of there. The risk is that it trades deeper than that, but if I was a buyer now, that's the closest I'd have my stop. Which trade is the most profitable for you this year? There are a couple that spring to mind. Stock trades, General Dynamics, there we go, which I think I'm out of now, and I should think about buying back in. So General Dynamics was a great one. You know, trades like this for me, when I'm doing the medium-term trading stuff, are pretty much the dream trades when they go up all the time, every week, because you just need to move the stop up. So that was a really good one. General Motors was another big winner for me this year. My current biggest winner is, that's still open, Boston Scientific. So I've been in that since 63.91, so down here. So I bought that there end of Jan, and it's 74 today. So that's then okay. But it's, you know, it's quite interesting doing all these US stocks because there's a definite mix of interesting ones, you know, out there. There's always something that's got a bit of a trend on. This has been a good one for me. I've got no idea what they do. Westinghouse Air Brake Technologies. But I bought those at 129. Oof, all the way down here. So I bought those again in January, and I've just sat with the trend on that. You know, and again, that's, you know, when it comes to US stocks, that is my approach, is to try and find the ones that are trending and sit with the trend. I've got a few shorts in there as well. They haven't done as well because obviously the market's been going up. But Dollar Tree, I went short Dollar Tree at 139.60. So here somewhere on the way up. And I think they came out with bad earnings, so that's helped that. But most of my US shorts are underwater, I think. I went short Dexcom the other week. And that's done all right so far. So I'm short that just because it was at the top of the range. But, you know, the big winners, not surprisingly, you know, the likes of the Googles are just trying to stick with the trend. So they've been the big winners for me this year. That's why I think it's interesting. If these markets break out again, I need to load up on more US stocks. If they break out, you know, let's see what happens next week. There we are on the S&P. Renault, quite boring, but there is an uptrend. Renault. So it's listed. Well, which one is it then? I'd thought it'd been listed on the old French market, but it looks like, oh, there we go, Renault. There we go. Renault. Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's a weird one, isn't it? A bit like their cars. I mean, it broke out, didn't it? And it's just not done anything since then, has it? I mean, if I had to do anything, I'd be a buyer. But a bit of a strange one, isn't it? I'd buy it. I mean, I wouldn't do anything. It's the sort of one, if I look at a chart of that, I'd go and look at something else. But yeah, you're right. The trend is up. It has been up for this year. If I was a buyer, where would I go for a stop? I don't know. I suppose an aggressive stop would be about 45 euros, something like that. So, but it's just been a little bit drifty, isn't it? Over the last month or so. Bosch in India. Bosch in India. Let me see. Oh, here we go. Thanks for that. I think it's that one, isn't it? There we go. What do they do? Produce auto parts. I mean, that's a great trend, isn't it? Bosch. I mean, that's gone through all-time highs, broken out through all-time highs. The other, whatever it was. I'm guessing this price is in rupees, I think. I don't know. I'd be a buyer. So I'd assume, like, we had a breakout. It's having a little bit of a rest. I'd put my stop loss at least the other side of 27,000. But that's had a fantastic run, isn't it? That has almost quadrupled since the March 22 of the COVID lows. Fair enough. But it's had a great run, isn't it? And then it really accelerated from end of last year. So yeah, I'd be a buyer. Someone's complaining I don't put videos up enough. No, I know I can't. I'm quite lazy is the problem. So I'll do these weekly things. But yeah, I should do more videos throughout the week. But I'd rather be trading or mowing the lawn than doing a YouTube video. But I'll try and pull my finger out next week. Otherwise, that's it, isn't it? I think we're all done. So loads to watch. For me, yeah, the big focus, because I've got loads of US stocks at the moment, is the US stock market. I think it's interesting anyway because we're just before the all-time highs. Let's see what happens. This dollar index, I still fancy a bounce in the dollar index. I am in the trade. Let's see what happens there. And oil, because is it turning around? I don't know. So, but the trend is up. So loads to watch. Inflation out next Wednesday. If you'd like to try the WhatsApp group, daily updates from me. It's like this, but every day, and better than this. So try that. You get access to that trading webinar, all of that. But otherwise, we'll wrap things up there. I'll go back to doing the gardening, and see you all next week. Good luck with your trading. In the meantime, any questions, drop me an email. You can get in touch with me via the website, or you can email me dj@davidjonestrading.co.uk if you have any questions. Otherwise, we will wrap it up there, and enjoy the weekend.